Hello. So Peter Dutton's Liberal Party have proposed that Australians should raid their super to buy their first home. We know that pretty much any time the Libs propose anything housing related, it's going to be terrible, but let's just take some time to discuss just how much of a bad idea this is, because honestly, it's almost impressive. On the surface, their proposal is that super is our money, and therefore Australians should be able to use our money to buy housing, which at face value sounds like one of the least dumb things Dutton could say. It's not that simple though. First, let's have a look at who's championing this idea. Andrew Bragg. Before being elected as a Liberal Party senator, Andy was an executive director of the Business Council of Australia. The BCA is quite simply the lobbying arm of big business in Australia. It's no surprise that the Liberals don't like superannuation, and they've been trying to destroy it for a while. And Andy is described quite nicely, actually, in the AFR as a prominent superannuation critic. As a side note, he also thinks we get paid too much in super. Anyways, now we have some context, let's see exactly what will happen if the Libs do raid our super. They know that this is really the last thing that they can take from us, because for most of us, super is all we have left, even if it's not that much, and really it's our last piggy bank for them to raid. So, why is it a bad idea? First things first. All the data shows that this proposal will raise house prices. Modelling from the Super Members Council shows us that if we let Australians take $50,000 from their super for their first home, it would raise the price of housing by $75,000 in capital cities, ultimately leaving us $25,000 worse off than not having touched our super in the first place, provided you even had $50,000 in super. Now, this is enough of an argument on its own, but let's dive a little deeper. Deloitte modelling shows that this policy could end up costing the taxpayer quite a large amount of money. How much money? Quite literally $1 trillion. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money. I love that they reckon they're the party of strong economic management when they're proposing spending $1 trillion of taxpayer money making the housing crisis worse. But yeah, at the end of the day, that really gets to the heart of the issue. The Liberals want housing to be more expensive because they're property investors. They know that if they increase the price of housing, it will increase their personal profits, while simultaneously making you stay worse off. It's in a landlord's best interest for the cost of housing to increase, and they'll do anything that they can to make sure it does, even if it costs us $1 trillion, which sounds like a made-up number. Anyways, next reason. The data shows that if a 30-year-old couple withdrew $35,000 each under this new proposal to buy a house with your super, they would retire with $195,000 less money in super. And why should we have to retire with hundreds of thousands of dollars less in super if they don't have to? Also, we already know that women on a median income in Australia retire with $136,000 less in super than male counterparts on a median income. This proposal would make this discrepancy far worse than it already is, and naturally none of the modelling really dives into exactly how much worse off women will be under this policy, which I feel like says at least a little bit about the value our society places on women in these conversations. But yeah, I'm getting sidetracked. Next reason. Under this policy, even if you didn't raid your super, you would still be worse off, as would every single worker, and not just because a house would be $75,000 more expensive. This is because the nature of our superannuation system allows super firms to invest in higher paying, longer term investments. And one of the main reasons that super funds are able to get better investment returns than banks is that they're able to do these long term investments without worrying about having to have a lot of cash on hand to give back out. If this proposal were to happen, super funds would be required to have more money on hand to give out early, preventing the funds from investing in as many long-term investments, which would ultimately cripple the retirement returns of every worker. Also, personally, and most importantly to me, something that both the Liberals and the modelling don't take into account is that for people without significant super balances, who are predominantly renters, gig workers, casuals, younger folk, people who can't work, as well as, let's be real here, women, this policy not only excludes them from access to a house, but it makes it worse for them. This proposal places home ownership even further out of reach by making it more expensive, but it will also increase rents as a result. It is a profoundly dumb idea. Ultimately, and I cannot believe I have to explain this, but making housing more expensive does not make it easier to buy a house. If the Liberals actually wanted to help people when it comes to housing, they'd be advocating for things like investment in public housing, housing supply, and significant strengthening of renters' rights, rather than trying to make banks and property investors richer. But this policy makes it clear which one they'd prefer.